Okay, so I have a few minutes on my hands right now. So I want to make another video on these trans women in sport issue because it's an issue that I'm interested in because it's a confluence of two things that I'm interested in, which is the whole business of trans women and the place in society and all the arguments around it, but also the business of performance enhancement of sport, which has been a very long-standing interest of mine. So this in itself is a very interesting subject for me, notwithstanding the present drama, which then elevates it to another level. But what I'm planning on doing is recording a video tomorrow about this. And what I want to talk about now, I'll just outline to you what is going to be in that video tomorrow. But then I wanted to discuss a particular thing, clarify something in particular tonight. The video tomorrow, then, neither of these two things really are going to be about the drama-y side of the ACA and rationality rules, by the way. These are more to do with the business of the argument itself, okay? There has been a lot of talk of the science involved, the little there is of it, I have to say. But there's a lot of talk with regard to that, and people like Essence of Thought are making videos and referencing some of these things without really showing you what is in them and the scope of the arguments that are being laid out within them. So I want to rectify that tomorrow. And two of the things that I want to show you is, one, it is this is the review, the report. It's a kind of meta-study of all the studies that they could find that were relevant, that people are making a big deal about. People are referencing this all the time with regard to this. So I actually want to go through it and pick out some bits and try and give you a flavour of what is in it and show you some key points with regard to that. So you have a little bit of that information, something to start from. I also want to go through Joanna Harper's research into trans distance runners, these 8 trans distance runners, which is, I'm sorry to say, it's an unsatisfactory situation, and even Joanna Harper admits it's an unsatisfactory situation. That is the closest that we have to actually a decent piece of scientific research into this. And I also want to discuss this commentary piece that was published in a journal that is by actually Joanna Harper alongside a number of others across the field, all saying it's kind of a plea to say we need some more research into all of this. So I want to do that tomorrow. But also in tomorrow's video, what I want to talk again is about this business of fairness in sport and these concepts of fairness in sport, because I think it's critical if you want to have an understanding of this, just having an understanding of issues pertaining to trans people, or issues particularly pertaining to this, without having an understanding of the concepts of fairness in sport and how it is dealt with, then you only have an understanding of one half of the things that you have to have an understanding of. So that's why I touched on that in my video the other day. And what I want to do is to advance that discussion to look at TUEs, therapeutic use exemptions, why we grant therapeutic use exemptions in sport, what they're meant to cover, what they're not allowed to cover, and then look at how that concept is also been applied, in fact, to the case of Oscar Pistorius, the Blade Runner, the guy whose legs terminate just after his knees, you will remember, who wanted to compete not in the Paralympics but in the full Olympics alongside the able-bodied runners, and indeed was initially banned by the IAAF, the International Amateur Athletics Federation, as well as the International Association of Athletics Federations, as is now. But then that was overturned on appeal to the Court of the Court of Arbitration in Sport. And it's interesting when you look at what they were aiming for and the kind of evidences that were made. It gives you an understanding of that, because then I want to show you how I think that is directly applicable to this business of trans women in sport. That's what I want to do. Record that tomorrow and try and get it online as quick as I can. Going away for 3 days over the weekend, so I'll see if I can get it all edited tomorrow. I don't know whether that will be possible though. So what I wanted to talk about right now was just to clarify something. One of the things that I took issue with rationality rules, Stephen Woodford or Woodward or whatever he's called, is his claim that trans women are going to be dominating sport, women's sport, in the near future. And that was one of the things that I dismissed, scoffed at, effectively. And I gave a number of reasons why that would be, but I wanted to elaborate on that. One of the things that I said in my video, this was on my Null Hand Grenade, my second channel, was that what you're talking about is a small number of trans people competing against the 0.001% elite, the genetic elite of female athletes that have gone through a normal female development in any given sporting discipline. And that effectively what you're talking about is a very, very small population of athletes. The population of women who are trans women is very small to begin with. And then, as noted in that meta study there are many things that dissuade trans women from taking part in sport, let alone all the pressures upon them and all the other baggage that they have to deal with in their life, which precludes, as we've shown, of course, in UK athletics, in UK sport, we've gone from 1 or 2 gold medals at each Olympic Games to sort of 20 or 30 plus gold medals. We are one of the highest medalling countries in the world, and the reason is that we've invested large amounts of money in sport. And the primary reason that investment, according to the experts, has made a difference is that it has allowed our top athletes to concentrate 24 hours a day on their athletics and not be sidetracked by the other issues that they have in life, such as earning a living, for example. That is the thing that has made the biggest difference. It's allowed them to become full-time athletes. I propose it's very difficult for somebody who has transitioned and has all the cultural crap to deal with to focus upon their athletic career in the same way as a cis woman would be able to. Notwithstanding as well then the heat that they are liable to get from some of their competitors who are not too happy with them competing. And we arrive at this situation where actually in terms of sport, trans women are underrepresented significantly numerically, even for the small population that they are to begin with. So you're talking about a very, very small group of individuals. But this is the point that I wanted to make with regard to the small group of individuals, because some people have the opinion of, well, the difference between the average male and the average female, or the elite male and the elite female, is so great that they're still going to dominate. The problem with that is that that's really only looking at one side of the coin with regard to that. It is true there is a very significant sporting difference between elite males and elite females, even in something like running, which has one of the smaller differences because it's effectively an own body weight exercise. It's aerobic exercise rather than a strength exercise. You understand the gap is bigger in strength exercise. You understand once you introduce a static load, such as the resistance of a boat on a water, which isn't quite static because a heavier rower weighs the boat down a little bit more, but it's a fixed resistance. Then a larger athlete outcompetes a smaller athlete because it's the overall wattage you're producing, not the watts per kilogram figure, etc., etc. But nevertheless, in something like running, you're still talking about something like a 10 or 11% difference across the board of all the different distances, 100 meters through to the marathon. I think that's understood. And the point that's made is that is a big difference between the average male and the average female. It is. It's a huge difference at the top end of sport. But I think what a lot of people aren't setting that alongside is just how elite athletes are. If you've ever tried to train yourself up to any half-decent level, one thing you learn is just how far off the pace you are. If you've ever tried to do a marathon, to run a marathon, right, how far you are off from Kipchoge, who is looking, admittedly a pace-setted marathon, but he's looking to break the 2-hour barrier in the near future. The 2-hour barrier. These people are light years ahead. A typically aerobically fit male has a VO2. This is the amount of oxygen that you can utilize within your body when you are working maximally aerobically per minute. Have figures of about 45 to 50 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram per minute. That is about how much you can utilize. And that's a pretty good indicator of your aerobic capacity. The top aerobic athletes, the Kipchoges and the Chris Froomes of this world, are at about 90. Right. We're not talking about a 10% difference here. We're talking about almost 100% difference. And for the majority of us males, we could train ourselves up. We could train as hard as we like, right? We can train at our peak efficiency for year after year after year. We're going to max out at something of around 65 to 70. If you get over 70, you can make the professional peloton, I'm led to believe, with a VO2 figure of around the 70 mark or just beyond in men's cycling. That is still almost, almost 30% below the Chris Froomes of this world. You're still a light year away from that very, very top elite level. And I think a lot of people don't realise this. So the chances of getting that one trans individual, that one biologically male individual who chooses to transition, who goes through that process, who is close enough to that 0.001% of females who are at the very elite point of their sport, is very, very unlikely because of the sheer numbers involved, and because although that 10 or 11% gap is big, it is dwarfed by the spread of aerobic potentials or strength endurance potentials or power potentials within individuals within the population male and within the population female. And that is something to bear in mind. And I think that is why you have not seen trans women dominate. Okay, so I've come to review this, and I've got to correct this bit. This is still me speaking, by the way. It isn't the cactus. But I just need to correct this bit. I just said this is the reason you haven't seen trans women dominate. That is not what I meant to say. What I meant to say, this is the reason why you could not have seen trans women dominate, irrespective of whether they have an advantage or not. That was what I meant to say. Okay, on with the video. And never mind the issue of HRT and what impact that has. I would be prepared to stake a great deal of money on it, that even if there was no HRT at all, even if all these trans athletes weren't on HRT, you still would, so all of us would agree, right, that there is an unfair performance advantage for the individual. I explained what makes it unfair in the last video. They still would not be dominating simply due to this business of weight of numbers and the difference between what the average person or the better than average person can attain, even with very, very dedicated training, and what a genetic elite can attain with very, very dedicated training. As I say, this has no bearing on the business of fairness, because you don't need to win for it to be unfair, and just because you win doesn't mean that it is unfair. But I think this is an important point, and this is why this whole business of, well, trans women aren't dominating, so there's nothing to see here. There are no issues of unfairness, and if they did have this residual advantage, then you would have expected them to be dominating already. Actually, I really wouldn't expect to see that. Okay, that's it for now. I'm looking forward to recording this video tomorrow. I'll really try and get it online tomorrow if I can. If not, it might be Monday, Tuesday. Okay, thank you for watching, and bye for now.